Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers, darling. Thanks a lot. Cheers, darling. Thanks a lot.
This is how we do it.
This is how we roll, Lady Kelly
Welcome
Ellis.
to Design Meets Life with Kelly Ellis and
Lucas Abram. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
You can see our little logo in the back. Design Meets Life, indeed. Now, we're about to become what?
your go-to. I call it a radio cast podcast. I kind of like
That's what it is.
in
at the moment.
between, something in between, right? I mean, for anything,
Kelly, you always like something in between.
I do. As long as it's in between art, design,
Entertainment, gossip.
and the gift of gab, I'm happy.
We do share the gift of gab. It's a thing we do
do.
together. Now, Lady Kelly is, of course, is a licensed psychology expert, TV personality, author, artist, and all-around wonderful person. Thank you for letting me be in your realm here in Barcelona. Now, I am her faithful BCN homie, and I'm an educator, historian, and pop culture expert. And I
Yes,
actually
you
teach
are.
a lot of this as well in many different realms here. But monthly, starting monthly.
Yes.
And then we're going to hopefully get to weekly. We're going to
We
become
are.
bringing you news and interviews. We're going to be bringing you news and interviews
Absolutely.
with a beautiful veritable cornucopia of fiercest creators, designers, and entertainers. And
Okay.
yes, I'm reading a lot of this. So let's just do the gift of gab.
We have so many friends here that are creative.
I only deal with creatives.
I feel like the city is like half of the city is creative. That's my feeling. Every time I meet somebody, they do something incredible. Really, truly.
Well,
And
that's part of the point of, I think, a lot of people moving out here. We're going to
think
throw it in the
so.
expat realm a little bit.
I think so.
Well, why do you think they're moving out? I want to make a statistic. Can we do this? I'm going to do it because it's my podcast.
Yeah.
Now, when Design Meets Life, before 2015, just over 30% of the U.S. population had a passport.
Okay.
Did you know it was that little?
No, and it hurts my heart.
Okay, it's exploded to over 40%
Yes,
in
it
the last few
has.
years. No one knows why. It's just a thing of inertia. But when we're dealing with something like this, okay, we also want to have a tipple involved. So anytime that you see us designing Meeting Live, it has nothing to do with alcoholism at all.
No,
it's
it
about
really
raising a
doesn't.
glass to
Exactly.
workaholism.
No, because it's not
I am a
work.
workaholic.
Yeah, well, I am too, but I don't consider it work. Right?
Okay,
And-
this is true.
And we get this a lot.
This is
okay,
true.
let's just talk about this because they think because we're American, that
US
we
American.
work too much. You work too much, but I'm sorry. What we're doing right now and everything that we choose to do that we've designed in our
Our
lives is not work because we love it, right? Because it's creative and fun.
Love it, yes. I don't always like it. Because there's, this time crunch and stress, and how do you deal with that in another city? I've got to also throw out some truth bombs is what we do, and we're going to also be joined by a wonderful friend of hers, soon to be of mine,
Yes.
but Mr. Bobby Burke is going to be joining us in just a little bit. Designer extraordinaire, and of course a man about
Personality
town, a
plus.
personality plus indeed, and he's been all over the city and all over the
Globe.
and interwebs. I want to always call them Al Gore's interwebs. But he's going to be joining us and calling us in from LA in just a little bit. But one of the things that I also want to talk about here is when we have family that's moved in. Now, you have family that comes to visit. You have friends that come to visit.
I do.
My father has just retired. And he said, you know what? I can't stay here in the United States anymore. I have to leave. So he's now come over
I wish my
here.
parents would say that.
Why don't your parents say that, Lady Kelly?
Well, one, they're super busy, but they're pretty entrenched. They're pretty entrenched. They're getting to the age, I should say, where it seems like too much to actually change countries.
Yeah.
It's a thing. I think when you get to a certain age, it's too daunting. Like we
my-
both left when we were young enough to go, wee!
Exactly. Speaking of young, we're so young. But my father came at 69, the only funny number. And now he's passed at 70. And he's in and out. And one of the things that I've realized living with him back and forth, because he travels a lot, is
That's nice too.
this man has never lived in a big motherfucking city. He has never lived in a city. And he was telling, the last time he was in town, he said, Mijo, which is my son.
Yeah.
We have Mexican background.
Yeah.
And he said, Mijo, I could hear the upstairs neighbor going to the bathroom. And I was like,
That's something my mom would point out.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my parents have never. They
They
have
designed
horses
their
in their
life
backyard,
exactly.
And they love that. That is 100%
All
their
power
choice.
to that.
That's their choice. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think when you've designed your life in upscale suburbia, as our parents have for most of their lives,
Yes.
it is a very different and perhaps daunting, you said was the word, task when he comes over. Now, my father knows how to flow, which is good.
Yeah.
But I wish we could say the same thing about him in the dating world.
Okay, well, we all have those moments, don't we?
It is. And before I get to the question, I also want to give a mad shout out to episode 6, I believe, of your new TV show.
Yes.
Extravagant Spaces.
Yes.
Which is on the Design Network. And here in Europe, you can find that on Rakuten TV and PlutoTV.com as well. So now, one of the things about when you're dealing with this, and I know I asked another question not too long ago to you, something similar, but when you're dealing with this, have you ever dealt with someone and you're having to promote their extravagant space? Not necessarily in this one, but in other shows, because you've been doing this for a hot minute, where you absolutely abhor the person, but you really have to put on the likes?
Yes, obviously we won't point out who that is, but
Of course no, love.
No, yeah, there's been some moments where you think I don't want to give you 5 seconds of accolades. And you think, okay, there's got to be something great about this person, right? And you literally dig around. I have gone to the depths of looking at, so who are those your children in those photos? Let's talk about that. Just anything that's not really, because they're very centric, right? Their world revolves around them, and it's it's difficult.
Well, then that makes me wonder, how have they designed their life?
Very, again, myopically, right? So they are the
Wonderful
center of
word.
their world. And so, and that's it. And you can see that, there's something very interesting about people
From California?
that don't have
I'm just-
passports. The people that don't have passports, right? Okay. So I know you probably had this, I know you had the same upbringing as I did, where seeing something outside of your little bubble that you lived in was so important.
Oh my God.
Right? Because it changes your perspective on everything.
Imperative, I would say.
It is imperative.
Yeah.
But so many people have not done that and they haven't left. So of course your world is myopic. Of course you're in the middle of it. You're in the middle of nothing but your walls and the little world you've created. And so those are the people that are like, well, nothing affects me. Why should I care about X? Why should I care about this? Why should I care about that? Because they can't get beyond that bubble, right? That of me.
It's
Nutty.
nutty, but I look at it as someone who works in journalism and education on this side of the world. When I expose my business clients or students or universitarians to certain things, like this week, I had to expose a few of them to the fact that in Alabama, IVF is a no-no, and if you drop a test tube of embryos, you can
Murder.
be charged for murder.
Murder.
And so when you look at it from the another perspective, even if you're a conservative over in this side of the country, in this side of the world, it comes off as, what's going on over there?
I
What's
can't
going
tell you
on?
how many times have you heard that? It's too many times to count. What is going on over there is really what we get, and it doesn't matter. To your point,
I'm just staring blankly at
I know
too many times.
It could
I've
be
heard that.
left. It could be right. It actually doesn't matter who says it, because either way, it's a little cuckoo. It doesn't matter where you even fall within that. And here, there's 5-6 parties all along the spectrum, and everybody.
And that's
does
only
that.
half the parties.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing. Well, I wonder how that would work. That's completely different from the tangent and our gift of gab that we were going to talk about originally.
That's okay.
But I wonder how that would work. Do you think that would work in our country? To have so many different parties?
We've tried. It's about money, and we don't. And
Kelly,
also,
don't scare the people. Exactly.
what we don't do is I've never ever after an election seen anybody get together and make a pact. Since we lost, let's gang up together
Like a
and make the
coalition.
numbers, because we don't count the numbers that way. It's not. Nothing is done the same.
It's not the way we
Nothing.
count our sex partners' numbers.
No, we don't do any of that.
Exactly not. Well, wait a minute. Janine Garofalo on Reality Bites comes to mind right now when she would make every time she slept with somebody. Did you remember that movie?
Yeah, but I haven't seen it in so long.
Do you know it's 30 years old
Well, I believe
next
that.
month?
I
This
do.
month!
I do believe it.
This is how thin, young, and gorgeous we are. But I'm going to use that Janine Garofalo, and I used to have a shirt that said, I love Janine Garofalo.
She's great.
She is,
She's
actually.
really great. Hey, Janine, can you be on the show?
Yes, we
Thanks.
want you on the show and how you designed your life
Yeah.
after all this time.
I do
In
love
fact,
her.
we're going to have our people contact your people.
Right.
But we are expats now living, or chosen immigrants, expats,
Yes.
living away from comfortably from our things.
My mom hates that term, expats,
Why?
because she's so patriotic. So she feels like her daughter is just like jumped the ship. She hates it so much.
Really?
Yeah, it makes her feel bad.
Would she prefer if you called yourself an immigrant?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not.
So, quick question. Before Bobby calls, can we talk about dating and love life factors as established professional expats? Here I go again reading. You know I love to read.
Yes.
Now, when you're over a certain age and you're away from your creature comforts of the US of A or North America, both of us find ourselves in the prime of prime of life moments right here, and we're single.
Yeah.
Fun. Can you speak about how you design your dating life? I don't want to get too personal,
Sure.
but I will definitely say I have never, ever, ever, young and now more mature, female or male, white, black, never been on a bad day. I have never, ever had a bad date.
Okay.
Never.
And I can say the same, but they're interesting dates. So I've recently had an interesting date. And what made it interesting was the expectations and the cultural differences are really astounding sometimes. I mean, truly astounding. Where you think, oh, people are people, Depeche Mode. And so
I was about to sing.
and so I am kind of shocked sometimes. Like I'm always friendly and I always can find the good and I can talk to anybody like you, anybody. And I really had a really lovely time. Nice guy, super cute. And then as I felt like Seinfeld for a moment, there was moments where he was doing things and I thought,
I've been watching a lot of that lately.
why is he doing that? Like okay, you ready?
Tell the good people what this guy was doing.
I'm gonna
please.
show everybody what he was doing because he doesn't know. No, he won't listen to this. He won't know. Okay, so he's wearing a sweatshirt like this, right? I'm gonna do it.
For those of you who are just listening,
Okay, this
he's
is what I'm
wearing a
doing.
sweatshirt with those
strings.
strings
With strings.
on. His
Okay, so
toggles.
as I'm speaking to him, he's taking one of the strings, and then going like this and wrapping it around
his ear?
Around. Okay, and I can't. This is what he's doing, and I'm watching him. I'm just trying to have a normal conversation, watching somebody do this.
May I ask how old this gentleman was?
45.
Okay, so old enough to know better. Older than my ass.
45. Wrapping the string around his ear as we're talking, and I was thinking, wow, there is such a interesting dynamic. And talking about his mom, by the way, and a lot.
That to me would be telling something about the relationship. If he's
He takes care of his mom, and so it's like, Mom!
Wait a minute.
meatloaf!"
Okay, hold up.
Like that.
He takes care of his mom. Now, when you say that
Yeah.
in Spain or Catalonia, because
Yeah.
we do live in the Catalan region of Spain,
Yeah, you know what that means.
what does that mean? Because there's, your daddy, my daddy, who's coming to live with me off and on, and then there's living with your parents.
Yeah,
still.
but if you haven't ever left your childhood home, you can't say that anymore. I'm sorry. No, your parents are not living with you because that's what
No.
I hear usually. Oh, my mom lives with me. You haven't left home at all. Like whoa. Okay, so there's some things. Those are interesting.
And that
things.
that is something that it does not necessarily get picked up on a lot here. I told my uni students today, I said, all of you, because they all live with their parents.
Yeah.
And I said, all of you don't live at home. You live at your parents' house. The minute you turned 18, it stopped being your home and it became your parents' house. And you now have a home that they pay for most of everything. And I said, and if you have a job, please at least pay for
Do something.
the telephone bill. Pay that gives you internet and gives you what have you. Because make a contribution.
It's not required here. It's just a weird thing. So it goes. I find that men are very, very immature for a long time. I am interested in
Only here?
no, but I am finding that I am most compatible with gentlemen from other cultures, and there's
Like
there's
Italians, Frenchies,
the Brits,
Brits.
yeah. German, obviously.
I've talked so much shite about Brits most of my life, even though I love them.
Yes,
Love them.
yeah.
So many of my friends are. And then the universe
know they're
brings
quirky.
the universe brings a specific Brit. We won't talk about this person.
Yeah.
But it changed, it changed my manner of thinking of these people.
Oh yeah, totally.
I think though, when you're dating outside of your country, don't you feel a little more liberation? I don't know, I do.
I do, just because I think, oh, I'm so worldly.
And they're curious about that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. They're very interested. Where? Oh, you're from California? Wow. And they want to hear all about it, and they think it's really cool. So you have this little cachet that goes along with you. That's a little extra something. Whereas somebody from also California is like, yeah, that's great. It doesn't hold the weight that it does here.
Okay, then I'm going to sound like a schmuck.
What?
The schmuck that I am. But when I hear other U.S. American accents, specifically in the metro or a bus or the street, and I hear, you can count how many likes you count. It's insane. I like, and then he was
what?
talking to you, and I was all like, I was
And
talking
then
to him
like-
first. Okay, that grates on my nerves.
Oh, I know. It's tough. It's really tough. Even living there
But is
was
that
really
us
tough.
being putzes because we're shunning our own
No,
people?
it's because they sound ridiculous.
I'm gonna ask Bobby about that. When
I know,
he's-
he should be here
when
in
he's
a
on this
minute.
side of the Iberian
I know.
Peninsula.
Yes. He's
Does he
got
hear that
stories.
and feel the
Yeah.
same? I wonder.
I'm sure he does.
Going back to the dating question before Homeboy calls in.
Yeah.
And another factoid, fun fact, over 60, nearly 65% of 30 to 32-year-olds still live with their parents or grandparents here in this country. Have you been out with anybody who's even older than that? And
Yes.
Really?
Older than that?
Well, no, older than that, but still living with their parents.
Yeah. It's shocking. And that's when I found out that my parents live with me actually means I live with my parents. That's when you ask a couple questions and you go,
Madonna mia.
wow. No, you don't get to flip the
script like that.
No, you don't get to flip the script.
Okay,
No.
so then how do you
Can't.
design your time when he's there? Is that a sign that Bobby's on? Bobby! Is Bobby there? Oh, wait a minute. We might need to put these on.
Oh, we might. Do we need these?
I don't know.
Do
I'm
we
going to
need
put them
these?
on just in
I
case.
think we do.
Here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Hey!
There we go.
Bobby!
Hey.
Can he hear
You
us,
guys are up
though?
late.
'Cause I cannot hear
can't
him. 1 second, dear.
Can you hear me?
Yay!
I can hear you now.
Yes.
Hey.
How's it going?
Hey, sweetheart.
You guys
How
are up
you?
late.
Yeah, well, it's Spain, darl. So this is early. We're just
Mm-hmm.
getting started, and
Dinner hasn't started
Like we haven't
yet.
even had exactly. I'm like we haven't even had dinner yet.
we do have wine.
darling.
I want to, Bobby. Thank you so much for joining.
Yes, thank you so
I
much,
want to
Bobby.
officially
Of course.
introduce you to Lucas, one dear friend, to another dear friend, Bobby Burke. We've known each other.
Bobby,
for-
thank you for wearing black today as well.
Yeah, he got the memo.
Of course,
Mm-hmm.
always.
We're going to talk about Satanism and all kinds of things today. No, but seriously, thank you so much for.
Where are already?
Right, exactly. Let the power of Christ compel. Now, where are you? You're buzzing in from LA, correct?
Yeah, I'm in LA right now. I'm in
Okay.
LA.
Now, we were just not making fun. We were making small talk about when you hear an American accent and you're here in Iberia, when you're in your region near Portugal. Does it ever grate on your nerves to be hearing when you hear a U.S. American accent?
Well, it depends on which one. I mean, there's a lot of
Okay,
US
California
American accents.
girls
He's
saying
making
like.
fun of me,
That's specific.
I haven't. I mean, we live in Ferragudo, which is a small little village
Ah,
in Lagos, and so we don't. We're usually there in the winter, which
Okay.
is great because it's only locals in the winter,
Exactly.
and that's the way I like it. If we go in the summer, it's a little too not local. So I don't hear a lot of Valley girls in Ferragudo, thank
Hallelujah.
goodness.
Very nice.
You hear that in
Very nice.
Barcelona a lot.
What I do find funny though, and funny yet slightly offensive, is when I walk into a store, people look at me, locals look at me, and instantly just go, "Hello."
Wait a minute.
How do you
Yeah.
know I don't speak Portuguese? What? Come on now.
Exactly. I said the same thing.
Like every single time they look at me, they pause and go, "Hello."
Isn't it
I'm like,
annoying?
"Hola."
Exactly.
Hola, tudo bem? I'm like, I speak a little Portuguese. Come on,
Wait a
don't give
minute.
up on me
Do they say
without even
hola in
trying.
Portugal?
Oh.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna
But
remember
it's
that.
OLA.
It
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
is.
OLA, not
Oh
HOL.
my
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
that
Okay.
yeah.
is
It's
hilarious.
the similarities between Portuguese and Spanish are enough to where, I'm not fluent by any means, but I speak enough Spanish to where it's made it actually more difficult for me to
I
learn
bet.
Portuguese
I bet.
because the similarities, I
Mm-hmm.
instantly go to Spanish. And
Totally.
then in Portugal, they
Totally.
look at me, they're like, nice try, you can't speak Portuguese. And I'm like, I
You
know, I know, I know. Claro, claro.
Does your hubby speak it as well? Speak a little Portuguese as well?
He's actually pretty fluent in Spanish and has
Love
Nice.
now
it.
he's speaks many languages.
Yeah.
Languages are very easy for him.
Excellent.
So yeah, I mean, in Portugal, he was already speaking to people in Portuguese, and I'm like,
Who are you? And
when did you
what
learn
what
that?
what download chip did you stick in your brain overnight, right? It's
Yeah, he'll
that's
he'll
good.
be the one to get us our passports
Nice.
because we
Lovely.
need to know Portuguese by the time our 5 years is up to get our EU
That's
citizenship.
right. That's right.
So
That's
you're
right.
working on that as
Yeah,
well.
but only like level A2, which I feel is just like know the sign is going to tell you you're going to fall off a cliff.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, like just basic, like
Yeah.
the difference between pow and pow,
I
which I
heard.
learned.
I
One
heard.
is bread,
I heard.
one is dick.
Yes.
Um,
What is bread
yeah,
and
so
what is
I
dick?
think
Como
Yeah.
pollo.
Yeah.
Polla.
No,
Okay.
pau in
Pau.
Portuguese. Yeah, pau. Yeah, you have to
Okay.
say it right.
but you're saying dick
I
right now.
know.
Yep.
I
Yes.
know.
Yeah, it's to say it bread, it's pound,
And your
pound. It's
nose.
very nasally,
Yes.
which I didn't find that out until our very last day in Portugal. We were there, and a friend of mine who is Brazilian, it's actually Gudo. He was the designer for Queer Eye Brazil, and we're at a restaurant, and I asked the waitress, I was like, oh, and it's not mas, it's mais
Hmm.
pau, por favor. And he's like, what'd you say? And I'm like, oh, like, oh, he's impressed by my Portuguese. And I'm like, ah, mais pau, por favor. And he's like, I don't think she has more dick for you. And I'm like, wait, what? He's like, I think you want pound, not pow, pound.
Oh, I'm dead.
Child,
I'm
please.
dead.
I'll take both. But that's
Exactly.
the
I
other
was like,
thing.
yeah.
In Spanish, the dick is polla, and
Mm.
chicken obviously is pollo, and so it's
Easy
easily
to
to
make
change that
those.
O and A, and I've done it many a time.
Let's not
Right.
do that.
We're not going to do it here in English, love.
No, let's not do that. I do want to get into some of our questions.
Questions are like fun. Now,
Preguntas.
Bobby, and I did. Your sister told me not to do it, but every time not every time, but when I hear your name, I want to say it the way Whitney used to say it, and B and Bobby Brown. Do you remember that horrible reality show?
No,
Then never mind. We're not going to do
I've
it.
never heard that. I've only heard it every single time they call my name at,
Oh,
at
shiza.
Starbucks. Yeah.
Okay, then I'm not gonna
It's
do it.
like,
I'm gonna fucking do it.
I always laugh when the barista's like, buddy! And laugh like, oh, this is the first time he's ever hearing this. I'm so clever.
I'm so
Okay. Then shut up. I didn't even ask that question. Now, are you Robert or are you Bobby? Are you Robert or Bobby?
Bobby.
Rock on,
No,
man.
I'm actually Bobby.
I
Born
love
in
it.
Texas. Where you born, boy? Where were you born?
Texas.
I know, but
Texas.
which
Yes.
part of Texas? Houston,
Yeah.
correct?
Oh, Houston.
Okay,
Yeah.
rock on.
Yeah.
I was born in the Valley, and I grew up in New York City, and you grew up in Missouri, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now-
I grew up in Middle America, in Springfield, Missouri.
That's
You
what
came
makes you so sweet. Those middle American.
Houston,
That's a
Texas. George
values.
Armani said Houston Texans were the
That's
nicest people he'd ever met.
I see.
He did say that.
It's true.
But can you walk us
Really?
he really did say that? How a young gay man meted so deeply in the faith managed to get out and do well for himself and get out of that. Well, I want to get a little in the nitty gritty if we can. How meted into the faith were you? I was a pastor's son, so I'm curious about that.
What denomination?
Well, my mother's blood was also Jewish. We were raised Judeo-Christian, but evangelical and spoke in tongues and the whole bit, and yet
Yeah.
practiced
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Hanukkah and
I grew up
Christmas.
Assemblies of God. Yeah, so Assemblies
Okay.
of God is a denomination it's Pentecostal, evangelical, like Hillsong Church. They're
Oh
part of
my
the Assemblies
God.
of God.
They kicked that pastor out,
So yeah,
didn't
I
he?
grew up. Yeah, I grew up very, very into it. Yeah, I mean, it was my life. I was in the church every single day of the week.
How did you fight those feelings? Those feelings that we fight, like, I'm straight, when you were 13, 14, 15.
I mean, I tried to pray the gay away,
Oh,
every
really?
single day. I tried to pray the gay away. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because obviously we were told that is, sorry, my dog is
I know, Bimmy.
really wanting the squeaky toy that is up on my desk right now
We
because she was
can.
squeaking it right before we came on. And you can't have it because he's too loud.
Can
It's
we
too
see the
loud.
baby?
Yeah,
Is it
show the
able to pick
baby.
him up?
Show the
Come
baby.
here. Come here.
The
Come
baby's
here.
so cute.
I want to see the baby.
The baby's really
Yeah,
cute.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Mm,
no!
yeah.
No! Who is this bear?
Bonito perro.
Who's this
Muy
See,
bonito
bear?
perro. See?
so
Oh my god, I can
cute.
smell that bear right now.
So cute.
Beautiful.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. No, you
Not
can't
at
get
all.
it.
I wanted that. Does he travel with you when you go to Iberia?
Everywhere. Yeah, yeah.
Hell
She goes
yeah.
to Portugal.
It's a
Yeah,
she.
she's a little
She, it's
Portugal
a
pup.
she and
That's the
Sima.
thing.
Okay,
See,
we're
see,
all
see,
Yeah.
see.
okay.
We all have girls.
We're parents of daughters. Brilliant. So, coming into that, when you're coming from that kind of mentality, and I don't want to try to take over the questions. I'm just a pastor's son, so I've had all these questions
He,
for
this
a
is, he
couple
was
of
like,
years
I
actually.
need to ask this. I'm so curious. Yeah.
So, when you're coming out of that and you're trying to pray the gay away, what was it was there a eureka moment where you thought, okay, this is some bullshit, I'm out?
Um, I don't know if there was necessarily a eureka moment of, oh, this is bullshit, I'm out. It was more of a, I had devoted my entire life to the church and I was very involved in the church. And then the moment people at the church found out that I was gay, like they completely turned their back on me. And so that was kind of the moment that I was like, well, fuck this.
Right.
It wasn't until later that made me start looking back and questioning everything. Oh, unconditional love wasn't real, even though they said it was. So, now let me start thinking about this and that. And I'm like, wait a minute, this was all such brainwashing bullshit.
Yeah.
Even we won't get we're on a radio station in a Catholic country. I'm not going to go into my
No, you
my
can. That's the
theories
beauty
on.
of doing this in English. They let us say whatever the fuck we want.
Right. They
We're,
do.
Just like thinking back of Mary and the Immaculate Conception. I'm like, wait a minute. How do you believe that? This was just a clever girl who got pregnant before marriage, either willingly or sadly not willingly. And
Yeah.
in those days, if you got pregnant before marriage,
Yeah.
you got stoned.
Right.
straight
So
up.
here's some clever girl. She's like, how can I figure out not to get stoned? And she's like, oh, I'll say God impregnated me. These dumbasses will believe that. And it worked.
Ex-
And a whole religion was born.
You know what? What I love about my university students here is that they all have said this before. Not they all, but so many of them have. And how
And
it's
I
been
actually learned that
cute.
in my Catholic school. I went to an all-girl Catholic school, and
Fun.
that was also something that we spoke about. So I have to say, like, even though it's a Catholic country, it's a pretty liberal country. There's a lot of
Nobody believes. Not in Catalonia.
No.
Down in Madrid, it's a different
No.
story. But in
It-
Catalonia,
yeah, it is very different here, and it just is. It's just eye-opening to see, the different perspectives that you can go. All right, this was a nice story. Like Jesus was a great guy. Not so sure he's the son of God. I've heard everything. I've actually heard everything from people who are Catholic, but still live their lives in a different way here, which I really appreciate.
I So I was recently given a rosary from the Pope.
Okay.
So we have a mutual friend. He's
I
one of
have a
his chief
mutual friend with the
advisors. He's
Pope. Yeah.
he's his name is Juan Carlos. He's amazing. He is the man who has
JC.
been pressing. He's the guy that's been helping the Pope make these statements of blessing
Yes.
gay marriage, and like
Yes.
he's really helped
Yes.
change the Pope's mind. And one day he called him, our holy father, and I was like, oh, I'm like, no, let's just start calling him Holy Daddy. I'm like, we're going to call the Pope Holy Daddy now. And apparently Juan Carlos told him that, and the Pope thought it was hilarious.
It is hilarious, and I love
And,
that.
yeah. And he's like, that's hilarious. He's like, oh, here's some rosary. Give this to him. Give this to him. I want him to have it.
Oh, that's so awesome.
You know
What
he was a
what great
bouncer in
story.
Argentina.
I know.
I love this man. I'm also proud that he's Latino. As a Latino, I'm going to say I'm happy to have one there, and someone who's been a little bit forward thinking in
Very
that.
forward thinking. I love that.
To an aspect.
Yeah.
Now, when you go from, and I know this, I believe the questions list went to you earlier this week, but when you go from sleeping in cars and friends' homes in the 90s,
I love his
eventually you
story.
get to Denver. according to
Mhm.
according to historical and Lucas being a nerd. But then you land in NYC with Restoration Hardware. But a lot happened there in the interior design way, where at one point apparently you're working for MCI and you met your biological father by chance. I need to know that story. If you can talk about it.
No, I had been in contact with him once before
Okay,
that,
sorry.
but I had lost contact. I had
Gotcha.
been in contact with him for like literally one phone call when I was 14, and then I
Hmm.
lost contact with him. And so I was selling long distance service at MCI as a telemarketer, and I found my biological
Oh
grandparents'
wow.
phone
Wow.
record.
Oh wow.
And so I proceeded to start calling them about once a week, trying to get them to change their long distance service. And I would have these long conversations with my grandmother, just as this random telemarketer that
Wow.
she just liked to talk to.
Oh my
And
gosh.
a
Hmm.
few weeks into it, finally one day, she was like, I really enjoy our talks, but, I'm not going to change our long distance. And I was like, well, I'm your grandson.
Oh my
Wow.
And she's like,
gosh.
what?
Hmm.
What? I'm like, that's fine, man. I'm your grandson. And she like called for my grandpa and she's like, Harold, this man says he's our grandson. And my grandfather picks up the phone and he goes, Bobby. And I'm like, yeah, because
Wow.
he knew I existed. He knew I existed. He's the one that told my father to
Yeah.
basically have nothing to do with it when yeah.
Wow.
But funny thing is, I've since found out in the last year that he wasn't my father either. So,
Shut up,
whoops.
Bobby.
Yeah,
Are you
yeah. That
kidding?
that that's not a story.
That's
That's
a
not a story I'm going
whole
to tell yet because
Okay.
that's yeah,
okay, that's
yeah.
a whole
That's
other
coming
thing.
out.
That's
That's
for the
coming out as
second
a
book.
whole
That's for the
article. Yeah, yeah,
second
yeah.
Is
book.
it really?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. Okay, well we'll pick up on the follow-up. Thank you so much. That's crazy and interesting and wow. All right.
I
Well,
mean,
okay, I'm so interested. So how did you go from telemarketing to I mean I've heard the stories, I know the New York stories, but I've always heard the story from the point of so I had a store. What happened before the store? How did you get there? Because that's a big leap.
Restoration
yeah.
Hardware.
So yeah, first job was Restoration Hardware, which, as you know, I got fired the day that Tom Felicia was literally in there filming Queer Eye for the Straight Guy.
Which is so just the irony of
And
that.
What? Are you kidding me?
right, I'm like, big mistake,
The
huge. No,
irony.
no, no, I'm not. It's a long, yeah. It had nothing. It really had nothing to do with him being in there, but it was just
No.
like such a
Ironic
kismet
moment.
that I got
Yes.
fired the day that my predecessor was in there filming
Yeah.
Queer
Yeah.
Eye. So
Isn't that
then after
crazy?
that, I
Mhm.
went to Bed Bath Beyond, which was a horrible, horrible job. And then
He got
Okay,
lost in the
why?
beyond.
for this
Why?
company
He
Can
that
got
I
lost
please?
in the beyond. He did.
Why was it horrible?
uh,
Our age, I love
I
because
mean,
it's my family, but
there's a reason why they went bankrupt. Like
mm,
companies who don't value their
Yeah.
people eventually will fall.
Yeah.
And this was one of those companies who
mm,
valued the bottom line more than anyone that worked at the company. Like
sure.
their employees meant nothing.
That's too bad.
Mm,
That's tragic.
And it eventually took the company down.
Mm.
Like this was back before the day of like digital credit card signatures. You had to sign with a pen. And so they actually made the cashiers bring their own pens from
Stop
home
it.
because they would be less likely to let a customer walk away with it. And if you
Wow.
didn't bring your own pen from home, you got written up.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah. Horrible, horrible company. Anyways,
Wow. Okay.
so
Bye, Bed Bath and
after
Beyond.
Bed Bath Beyond,
wow.
so if you guys, so Kelly, if I were to get you to come work at Bed Bath Beyond, as you were my
Oh.
referral, I would get a $3,000 bonus if you
Wow.
lasted 90 days. They never paid those bonuses out.
Uh,
Never. I got so many friends to come work there,
please
and
spill
nobody
that
lasted
tea.
90 days.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
they treated everybody horribly. They worked you to death. They treated you horribly. They paid you nothing. You know.
And that's why they're not
Anyways, so
here.
after Bed Bath Beyond, I went to work for an Italian linen company, who brought me in to help them bring their brand into the U.S. And everything, she is not giving up on this toy. She is just
Read
sitting
the
here
You can
staring
mommy.
at
have
me like,
it.
give me
Read
that
the
dinosaur.
baby.
No, it's very loud. It's very
Okay.
loud. No, I know. So they brought me in to help them expand their brand in the US. And everything that I tried to do, they fought me on. Like, for
Mm.
example, just basic things like flat sheets. In Europe, Europeans don't like flat sheets, but in America, Americans expect a flat sheet
Yep.
in their bedding.
Yep.
And just things like that. They're like, no, 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 you're
Yes,
wrong,
we
you're wrong, you're
do.
wrong. So every single thing I tried to do, eventually they fired me, telling me I was never going to amount to anything.
Okay.
At that point, though, one of our retailers that we supplied for was Portico. I don't know if you guys remember Portico, but there was a high-end design store. We also had a spa division that was in all the Hyatt hotels. And so the owner was like, dude, forget them, come work for me. So I started managing his store in Soho, and then I became a buyer, and then I worked my way up to creative director, and I also built their e-commerce division. So the company was always financially never doing that great. And one day they literally just like, we're closing our doors, we're bankrupt, we're done.
Wow.
So that night, I'm like, well, what am I going to do? So I cloned the e-commerce database that I had built for them with all the product, because at that point we just had a bunch of outside brands that we were selling. And I registered BobbyBurkeHome.com
There you
and I
go.
launched it all on BobbyBurkeHome.com. And I'm like, maybe I'll sell a sofa or two while I look for another job. And I ended up selling more than a few. Like I was one of the first online retailers selling furniture. Wayfair wasn't around.
What year
Amazon
was
was still
that?
just selling books.
This was before
This
people
year
were
was
you were
that?
people were selling
this was
shoes online.
2000. Yeah, this was like 2006,
Okay.
2005,
Wow.
2006.
There you go.
Okay.
Actually, probably
early.
more like 2005.
And Bobby, this is
And
when
so
that would be a big deal for somebody to buy online, right? I mean, like back then, people were not
Yeah, and
doing that.
that was actually my biggest hurdle, was getting suppliers to allow me to sell their products online, because all the furniture manufacturers would be like, online, no one's going to buy anything online. This is just going to upset our brick and mortar stores. And so I constantly to where in the end, I get a call from the Italian guy who had fired me, telling me I was never going to amount to anything. And he was like, oh, I see you have your own brand now, and I see it's doing well. I'm going to do it with the Italian accent, because apparently I heard that the Italian accent is the only one socially acceptable to still do. I can't do the other accents, but apparently Italian accents, like, you won't get canceled for doing an Italian accent. That was the headline I
Child,
read the
you
other day. I
already
don't know
know.
why.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Allora. And so he was like, I see you have your own brand and it's doing well. He's like, I have a store in Soho and it's not doing well. Do you want to buy me out? Or do you want to partner with me? And he had high six figures in debt. And he wanted me, as part of the acquisition, to take on all the debt.
Oh.
And all of my friends in finance were like, no, 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 this is crazy. But in my mind, I was like, if I can pull this off, I will skip decades of work, because once
True.
you have a brand in Soho, New York, you have made it. All these brands, all this fashion, all this home that these people work for decades to get a store in Soho, I'll skip all that if I can make this work. So I did it, and I took on his $700,000 in debt. And
What?
I called his suppliers in Italy, which is where most of his debt was. And I was like, give me a small credit line and send me all of your closeout stuff. All the stuff you want to get rid of, send it to me.
Wow.
And I turned that Soho location into an Italian sample sale location, where I had a guy standing on the street corner of Broadway and Spring with a big sign on him saying Italian bedding, 90% off. And I paid that debt off in less than 6 months.
Wow.
There you
And
go.
I should have just kept it as a sample sale location, because it was a cash cow. But I wanted to be a brand. And so I rebranded it into a Bobby Burke Home store. And it started doing well. And then I did a store in Miami, and then Atlanta, and then LA. And as people started knowing the brand more, I started getting licensed partnerships and deals and expanding outside of just retail. And then I started doing design. And I quickly realized I much more enjoyed doing design than I did having retail stores. So as the retail store leases were up, I started getting rid of those and just focusing on design. And I got rid of my last store in 2015. And that's the year I moved to LA. And I was in LA basically just all of 2016. And then at the end of 2016, Queer Eye came calling.
I was going to say, I think I met you when you
Yeah.
guys moved to LA, because you were still in between New York and Los Angeles when I first met you.
Yeah.
Years ago.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Yeah, a few years ago. We've known each other a good decade now.
We have. You just had launched at High Point. You just had launched your wallpaper line, and we were walking around
Yeah, and that's been at
IHFC.
least a decade.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
feel about New
Yeah.
York and versus LA at the moment, now in 2024?
New York was, it's concrete jungles where dreams are made of. It's true. Like New York will make you or it will break you. New York was exactly where I needed to be in my 20s and early 30s. It is not at all where I want to be now in my 40s. So New
Why
York
not?
is
Why not?
amazing. And I mean, it's it's a rough life.
What are you talking
It's a
about?
fight to get on
You go
it's a
to
fight
LA,
to
you
get
get
on the
spoiled.
elevator. It's a
Yeah.
fight to walk down the street. It's a fight to get on the train. Just like you're always ready to fight. And
Different.
I'm
Yeah.
beyond that. And also, in your 20s and 30s, you're poor, you're hustling, you're working your ass off. Like I would go into work when it was dark and I would leave work when it was dark. It was nothing to be at work past 9, 10 o'clock at night every night. And that was just normal. And after working, 7 days a week, 363 days a year through my teens, 20s, and 30s, I was just, and also the
I
winters
was
got
gonna
to be
say
really
the
bad there for a
weather.
while.
Once you go to LA, you
Yeah,
get it
I just
really
got to the, yeah,
spoiled. You do.
yeah. I just got to the point where I was done with that life. I was done having to hustle because in New York, it doesn't matter. I mean, unless you're a billionaire, you cannot be successful enough. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're always gonna have to be hustling. It's always gonna be not a struggle, but kind of. Again, just walking
Hmm.
down the street sometimes can be a struggle there.
Hmm.
And I was at a different point in my life. And so,
Apparently, with Trump,
at
even if you're a
30,
billionaire, there can
yeah.
be a problem in New York paying your bills.
Well,
That's another moment.
I question if he's a billionaire.
He's
Well,
not.
no.
We all know he's not. So, would you say
Yeah.
that that was an aha moment
Yeah.
for you being there? Like, okay, I'm going to be doing this, but I got to
It
get out
was
of
an
New York City.
um I had been trying to get us out of New York for a few years. I was done. Like I hit 11 years and I was like, I did my time. I'm officially a New Yorker. I
Hmm.
had been because I had stores in Miami. And I actually it wasn't until I started spending time outside of New York that I
Mm.
realized I had Stockholm syndrome.
Mm.
I was in love with my captor. New York City is your captor. And while you're there, you're
Interesting.
like,
Very
New
Wow.
York City, I
interesting.
would literally say, people would say, could you ever live anywhere else? And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Mm.
Where else, at least in the US? I'm still,
I still
one of
say
my
that.
biggest regrets in life is I'm in my 40s and I haven't lived in some of the places I'd like to live around the world. But, at the time, I'm like, where else in America could you live besides New York? But then I started spending time in Miami. We had a place down there,
Are
and we
you
had a place in
okay?
LA, and we were living in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I started realizing, I'm like, oh, wait. I'm
Hmm.
like, there are some other great places in this country
Hmm.
where life is not so demanding and so hard, and people aren't so aggressive all the time. And it's made me a much happier person.
That's good. I
That's
mean,
When
awesome.
that's
again, would I trade my time in New York?
no,
Absolutely not. New York
no.
was exactly where I needed to be when I was there.
And I think that that's a
And
key.
I
That's a key point,
absolutely, if
Bobby. It's a key point for a lot of people,
yeah, and
right?
if I always recommend to young people, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
go live in New
Mm-hmm.
York. Go to New York,
Mm-hmm.
experience it, live it. It will either make you or it will break you.
But you're going to
But you
learn
will
something
you will
either
be
way, right?
it'll yeah,
You're going to learn something
yeah,
either way. You're going to walk
absolutely.
away. I have a lot of friends in New York, a lot of young friends in New York, a lot of kids that go there for school, and they have done that, and their experiences vary. But it's really interesting because we're talking about living in a city now, right? Because we're in a bustling city. Like I haven't had a car for 5 years. It's been glorious. Like just not having life is completely different. But I think you have to change it up sometimes and experience something completely different. Obviously, you know that now being a property owner in Portugal, which is super exciting. But you know that there's such value to getting out of your bubble, no matter what that bubble is, right?
Yes, Lord.
Like you spend a certain amount of
Yep.
time somewhere. When you start to, I love the Stockholm syndrome thing. That was brilliant.
Yeah, I've
I've
never
never
thought of
heard
it.
that.
I still have it, actually, with New
I've never
York.
heard that. You've been here how many years?
15.
15 years. He still has he's Stockholm syndrome
It's
with
in
New
my
York
blood.
City. But there's a value to getting out, and then when you see that you have been in a bubble, that's when you go, all right, it's time to change things up a little bit and do another
Yeah.
chapter of our lives, right? So I want to talk really quick. Speaking of
Yep.
chapters, you have a new book. And it's, yes, and I
Yeah.
love the book. Now, obviously coming from design psychology, you just were barking up my tree. I was so happy to talk about this book at High Point, but also just to see what you're doing, because people love you, Bobby. They love what you do. They love you. I think there's so much value in what you do. Obviously, we've seen you on television. We've seen your role. We know how fantastic you are. But people really understand when they get to see, that's the value of television, is where I'm going with this. The value of TV and what you do is that we get to see the change that you can affect in somebody's life by painting their walls. So let's just talk about that a little bit. What was the reason behind the book?
I've been asked to do a design book for a long time. And, this isn't a knock on any other design book because they're all great. They all cultivate design and creativity. But I didn't want to just do another book filled with pretty pictures and filled with unattainable homes that, because often, even for me, there's a lot of design books that just make me feel awful about my own space. I'm like, I will never have a space that nice. But being in the industry, we know what went on to make that space look so perfect for a photo shoot, and that no space really looks like that done day to day. But I really wanted to do a design book that would help people. And on Queer Eye all the time, we dive into how your mental health is really affected by your space around you, and chaos around you creates chaos in your mind, and the key signs of depression in your home. And so I wanted to do a book that really focused on the mental health aspect of design. I really wanted it to be not just a design book, but a self-help book. And that's really what I always categorize it as. This is a self-help book that happens to look at it in the lens of design.
I love that.
Yeah.
That you can't watch a season without bringing out the tissues, and I just have to say
Lord.
that the biggest reactions are when they get to see their new spaces. So kudos to you and all of the future endeavors. Cannot wait. I'm sure you can't talk about anything, so I won't bother asking unless you can
Not yet.
share. No, I didn't
Exactly.
think so. I didn't think so. But everybody's waiting, and we can't wait to see what you do next, and on that front for sure. It's just too exciting, right?
Thank you.
I know. I love it. I love it so much.
I love that both of you have done books that deal with design in your life, but looking at it in a more emotional, mental, psychological aspect as well. Both of you have done that. And I wonder when you, because Kelly's already told me what I need to do with I'm one of those gay brothers that does not, I have an eye for everything, but interior design is just not my thing. But when you go back to some of the successes
So
that you've
are you the life part of Design Meets Life then?
well, that's bloody right. That's bloody right. I do love fashion. I'm really big on fashion and style and things of that nature. But when it comes to designing, even my father, who he actually has worked in home building and construction as a foreman for major projects his whole life, so he's got that eye, but his gay son does not. However, one of his 3 gay sons does not.
Yeah.
However, we're still on the fence with my father. No, I'm kidding, Daddy. I love you. Oh my God, I know you're straight. However, the success that you've
Dios
had.
mío.
I know
Dios
better
mío.
than that. He's not going to say this. Don't worry. How much has being happily married? Because if I'm not mistaken, you've been married for a hot minute.
He has for a while.
We've been together 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, you bloody
it's so
hell.
it's so the cute. The photos
I was
are
in
so
university
cute.
20 years ago. And see, how much has that played a successful part into your design life? Having that stalwart, mystery companion always there.
He's so great.
How has it affected my design life?
Well, how's it been? How's it played a role into your success in some aspects?
I mean, a huge role. Always having that person that is always there for you, having that person that supports you no matter what, but also having that person who calls you out on your shit. Like
This is the
Dewey is very much, for any of our Asian, Dewey's very much an Asian mom. Like as far as like Like, any of our Asian listeners out there will know exactly what I'm talking about. Where Asian
Okay.
moms don't hold back.
Tiger
They're very
mom.
loving, but they don't hold back with their opinions. They're very direct, and like
Dewey.
I'll yeah. And so a lot of times my castmates would be like, I would cry if my spouse said to me some of the things that Dewey says to you, and I'm just like, he's just being honest.
Yeah.
He's being honest. But that in turn, like, there's a lot of times when I am doing like a live performance, or I'm speaking, or I'm filming a show, like I actually won't allow him to be there because I know he is so judgmental, and not judgmental in a bad way. If he just says the way it is. And so sometimes I'm like, for my mental health of being able to get up on stage and be able to do this, I'm going to not
be
need to
there?
hear your opinions today. I actually need people just blowing smoke up my ass today. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to get up on stage. I need to hear how great I am, not how I'm doing things incorrectly.
Hilarious.
So
up.
he's not usually allowed to come to anything where
Oh my
I'm doing a performance or anything in front of
Okay,
people.
so what I heard was he is a grounding factor in your life, and that is just as important
Yes,
as
very
somebody who
much so.
pumps you up. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Doing
Very much so. Like
Dewey's hilarious.
yeah, without him, I would not be where I am today.
Oh. Okay,
know.
can we go back to where you were before today?
Where's
Because
that?
we're gonna Zoe.
Where are we going?
Okay.
Yesterday I was in Vegas. No.
Were you? What were you doing in Vegas? 'Cause
He was promoting his home designs, right?
No, I just went to KBIS and IBS.
Oh, you did KBIS. Okay, okay. Well, you have, but
Yeah,
there
yeah,
are
the
some
home show,
developments
yeah.
out there, right? Or no?
Oh yeah. We have a ton of
Yeah.
developments that we do in
Yeah,
Vegas.
yeah. I thought
Yeah.
so. I saw
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
I saw something lurking around on Insta. I saw something pop up on
Yeah.
my Insta.
Yep.
kind of Bobby.
Oh my god.
For those of us who escape and survive family trauma, we're going to go a little bit further back. Okay, so I wanted to ask you if we can before we escape the recording. The trauma of fiercely religious, bigoted backgrounds. Do you think it's easy to survive unscathed when you live and grow up through that, or are there still some reckonings,
No.
demons, fears that you have to deal with?
Those demons and fears never go away. When you have been brainwashed and programmed to believe a certain way, and to believe specifically that who you are is bad, that does a number on you that never goes away. You get better at dealing with it, but I don't think that damage is never undone.
There's an episode of Queer Eye that
That's
really
just my opinion.
that got me
Me
about
too.
you dealing with that.
Yep.
A couple years ago. It might have been an Austin, Texas one actually. Which
Yeah.
really, guys, I went to university in UT.
It was in Georgia.
In Georgia.
It was with
It
Miss
was in the
Tammy,
South,
right?
I remember
Mama
that.
Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was in Gay, Georgia.
exactly at the church.
That was a moment I think where people got to really know you.
Straight up.
That was probably if you go through. I mean, obviously all of the seasons are great and all the episodes are great, but that was Bobby's season. That was Bobby
That was your
episode. That was your episode where we got to know you in the most beautiful way. Even though it was very traumatic and the conversations were traumatic and you were sharing so much about yourself and obviously who you were helping, right? It was so personal that it was from the minute it started to the as it ended, from somebody who's known you a decade, it was still so enlightening and so moving. And it was
Tough to watch, I would presume.
it was, but it was also eye-opening for people like me who I just, we grew up in our little Orange County bubble who didn't have a freaking clue and everything was yippee skippy and Candyland. Like, I'm not going to lie, I would be lying if I made up some trauma, right? Like it didn't exist, but it's still so important for every single person. If you have the history, you don't have the history. It doesn't matter because the people around you never know their story, right? You never know what.
So be kind, people.
Yes, you never know people's
Yep.
story,
But-
and that was huge.
Mr. B, what does the Lord mean to you now as a man forever 39?
I don't believe in it. So.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly.
39, that was nice.
Oh my
Far
God,
from
you and I are
39.
forever 39, darling. Okay, so then the
I'm
element.
not. I'm 54 this year. Okay, I'm going to own this stuff. I'm going to own it and wear it. We're owning
Okay, I'm
it.
44. I don't care anymore. No, but in dealing with that reality, then, as someone who doesn't believe, do you believe in spirituality? Do do you do meditation? Do you do anything in that brings you into that less religious, more spiritual element, maybe?
No, I mean,
Okay.
having believed in so much and realizing
Mm.
that that was all BS, I really don't believe in anything anymore. I believe
Do you believe in life after
in
love, love,
yourself.
love? I'll sing it
I
like
believe in
Cher.
karma.
Yeah,
Okay.
You know,
karma.
I
Yeah,
believe
there you
in
go.
yeah, being a good person. I believe in putting good out into the world. But I don't believe I don't believe in spirituality. I don't believe in any higher being.
You know what's so funny is
I think honestly believing in a higher being is just a cop out to not be a good person or to not own your own shit.
that
Oh, well, it's the Lord's will. No, it's not. No,
right,
it's not.
right. That's
Yeah.
really an interesting take,
That's
and
what my mom said about Trump.
I think that was very brave. That's a very brave thing to say, Bobby, because there's a lot of people that are afraid to say that. And I didn't even grow up religious. My dad's American Indian, as I used to joke, and my mom's Catholic, and my dad's an Indian, right? So like, I didn't grow up with a religion, but at the same time,
Hmm.
if I was gonna really dig deep and go, what do I believe? I have big question marks. I actually say, I'll let you know after I die. I'll let you know what's real and what's
Yeah.
not. Right? Because I think there's a lot of people that are afraid to say what you just said. They're actually afraid of that. And I think it's interesting.
I don't
I
think I've heard somebody say that, actually.
I think it's
And most
really
people in
brave.
Barcelona do not believe in a higher power at all because of their history with Franco and all that shite here.
That's right. That's right. It's really an interesting take, and I really applaud you actually for saying it.
Does it disgust you to be in the States with all of the religiosity that seems to permeate so much of the, certain
Politics,
factions?
politics.
Yeah, yeah, when we have state Supreme Courts quoting scripture with
Yeah,
their,
yeah.
In
taking away
Alabama,
IVF.
we talked about that a
Yeah,
minute ago.
yeah.
I can't. I can't.
Yeah, yeah, it's rough being in a country that allows religion when the country was specifically formed to
Avoid it.
break tyranny
Not if
from
you ask
religious
Lauren
persecution,
Boebert.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
was specifically formed as a separation between church and state because
Exactly.
all religions needed to be respected, and they didn't want any religion to dictate what they did. Yeah, so yes, it's very frustrating to see
It's hard to watch, isn't it?
our country creeping steadily and steadily towards a Handmaid's Tale.
It really is.
Straight
It
up.
really is scary to watch. And
Yeah.
as you know, you look back when you're not in the country, and you look back, and we joke.
Yeah.
We were talking. I know
I
we
mean,
were
for
talking
real.
before
It
you
is.
joined us that people say to us, left or right, because here there's several parties and there's many in between, right? But it doesn't matter
Right.
who they are or what they believe. They will literally look at us, and I say literally like a valley girl, like a valley girl from California.
Literally.
They will literally,
Yeah.
they will literally look at us and go, "What the hell's going on over there?"
Yeah, I get that
Yeah.
daily.
U.S.
I mean, it's literally the reason why I'm getting my EU citizenship.
Good, yeah,
I mean,
amen.
the driving factor was I no longer feel secure in this country. I no longer feel secure politically, emotionally, safety, financially. Our golden visa is our golden parachute,
Right,
just in
Okay.
case.
I
right.
think our next reunion should be in
Yeah,
Portugal or here in Barcelona. I think the
Yay!
Lord wants it,
absolutely.
but I'm bringing my bitch with me too, so they can be kissing sisters.
He means literally his dog.
Literally,
I got
literally,
that.
and they're starting
I
to
got
say
that.
that
Okay, good.
here
Okay, good.
in Spain. They're
I
starting
know
to
they
say
are.
literalmente, literalmente. It's
They
very
do. They
strange.
do.
The Valley
Yeah,
talk gets here.
yeah. That's
Now,
true.
final question: what advice would you give your 15-year-old self about pursuing everything that you've been pursuing over the last to 39 years?
Just go with the flow. My
Mm.
15-year-old self would have never thought I would be where I am, or I would be in design, or maybe even be alive. Who knows? So yeah, just go with the flow.
Amen.
Relax. Enjoy.
Trust the process.
Yeah,
Trust the process.
Bobby, thank you so much for being here
Oh my
today.
gosh,
Thank you
we
for joining
of
us
we've
on this
course.
really loved
podcast.
it. So Design Meets Life basically is what you said, right? I'm the design, he's a life, but really it's the impetus of talking to friends and people that we know and love,
Creators.
talking about
Thank
how
you.
they've designed their own life in the way that makes sense to them. And you've been a great guest. So thank you so much.
Seriously, and
Thank
thank you
you,
for
of
the
course.
years
Anytime.
of inspiration for
Yes.
a little old gay man like me. Tell you what,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get some I'm
He
gonna get
needs
some
help.
tidbits from you and Kelly in the future.
Okay. He needs help.
All right, thank you,
All
love.
right,
Power to
guys.
the
Thank
people.
you.
Mwah.
Besos to you, man.
Buon noche.
And to Signore
Buon
Day as
noite.
well.
Buon
Buonanotte.
noite.
There you go.
Bonanit.
No, no. In Portugal, we say bon noite.
Oh,
Bon
bon
noite.
noite.
So similar. It's bon noite.
I like
Bon
it.
noite.
I
Okay,
like
it's like
it. Bye,
Catalan.
sweetie.
Bonanit. Ciao bello. Deu.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too. All right, children of the corn, and that's how we roll.
fun.
Tell you what. So remember, whatever you do, remember that you design your life to include you in it. That is actually one of the impetuses of why we wanted to start this. Was how
right.
easy we design our lives around everything, work, children, everything else except us. Please remember to include yourself in that as well, okay? And Kelly, is there anything that we should say before we do that? Thank you for bringing Bobby on. Bye.
Yes. You know what? He's been such a great friend for such a long time.
Honestly.
And I just adore him. We've been through all kinds of interesting things in our lives together.
Love it.
Check in often. And he's genuine. And that's what's so beautiful about him.
You feel it too, just
yeah.
now.
And
Come on now.
I'm so glad you got to meet.
Thank you so much for making that happen.
Yes, of course. And no, just check us out. We're on different. We need to have our own Instagram. We're going to start a
doing all
Design
that.
This Life Instagram.
Exactly. It's a new podcast. We're actually going to be
Exactly.
launching on a Creative Cast in the spring of
Exactly.
24. So we're putting all these babies in a can, and this is one of the beautiful ones that we've been able to do with Bobby Burke.
Yeah.
And you can catch us. You can actually catch us on Instagram as well at designer Kelly Ellis.
Kelly with an I.
That's right, Kelly with an I. The Club with Lucas, also on Instagram. And you
Mm-hmm.
can follow the good stuff as well at English Radio BCN, also on Instagram and Facebook. And of course, RCE 106.9.
Thank you
where
so
we
much.
Film from our studios. Folks, we'll be back here, as we say, every 2 to 4 weeks to bring you something good. And remember, include yourself in your life. And we want to give mad shout out and love to Giovanni Gizzani, our beautiful jazz musician from
We love
Italia,
him.
who gives us this lovely music to play us out with.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody. Design your life for you. We'll see you on the flip side. Bye.
Wind on a face, she's living like this. Into the crowd on Friday morning with a